my understanding is they're very strict and they don't have a, especially like with women's wrestling, they're very successful. They dominate the world. I mean, pretty much anyone in women's wrestling knows that Japan is the power. But in talking to several people, my understanding is they're very strict and there's not fun and it's not, they don't go to a lot of happy places and there's high expectations. So, uh, as I was thinking about how you were talking about adapting some things from the Russian system or the Soviet system to the Japanese system and coming from martial arts, is the Russian system that strict?
Yes, and I think this the strictness that Japanese have historically is very respected and appreciated, and is attempted to mimic, attempted to take the best out of it by European and Eastern European in particular systems. But I think that together with this kind of a facade of strictness, there is also very nurturing processes that are in place in the Japanese system. And while it doesn't seem to be fun, it may be just the kind of the superficial kind of picture. And I think that they start very early with a lot of play and a lot of conditioning and a lot of exercise before they go on competitions. So it's yeah, it is strict, but I think it is also very caring at the same time, and there is a seamless progression that's in place. So yes, they reach this level of discipline by very slow, seamless progression to it.
Because that's what they're known for in wrestling is that they don't get out of position. I mean, they don't get rattled.
The Japanese?
Yeah, the Japanese, and I'm thinking women in particular. There's some successful men, but the Russians dominate men's wrestling. But the Japanese women do not get rattled and get out of position. It's really incredible. Like there's times you'll see someone go toe to toe with them for a little while, and then it's like they don't. It's incredible the amount of discipline they have to take the shot when it's there, and it's really almost a thing of beauty to watch them compete and do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'd say in most combat sports, Russians try to take the best from East and West, and they do use quite a lot of Japanese methods, but without too much. They try not to be fanatical about any system. They take Western and Eastern approaches and integrate. And your question, the question about why they have been successful, and I think during most of the post-World War II period, for most of the, let's say, for half a century, they dominated because they have not really been that fixated on the new on any particular tradition, but they tried to integrate all the best they could get. And I think your question about why is because the system that they created was new by itself, was innovative, was inclusive, and also, of course, resources. Of course, they put so much emphasis on it, so that no other country cared as much and was passionate enough to create, for example, wrestling and boxing national teams. They have group of 40 specialists in sport, in different sport science, pedagogical science, biochemistry, medicine, but also sport psychology, physiology, but also engineers, engineering scientists who were part of this, what they called complex scientific groups, who supported national teams for creation of multi-discipline development plans. And they created plans for each athlete that were not these plans were very long-term plans. We're not talking about macro cycles of 1 year. We're talking about macro cycles of 4 or 8 years. Why 4? Because they looked at next Olympic Games, and I said, what do we need to do? Every year, every month, and every week during these 4 years to prepare for this Olympic Games. That's not enough. They looked at the following 4 years and saying, we're preparing for the next Olympic Games, but that is only preparation for the following Olympic Games. So we have created 8-year training plans for most of our hopefuls, for most athletes who have potential to win.
Wow.
And these plans were created under supervision and with consulting voices of 40 specialists in different sciences, and not only human related sciences like physiology, psychology, medicine, but also engineering. And that is why we can talk about doping and we can talk about other artificial performance enhancement substances and methods, sure, but these are less than 5% of the success.
That's unbelievable.
They are probably
40 different scientists. So they got a team of 40 different scientists to prepare an 8-year macro cycle.
Exactly.
Jeez.
Do the Russians?
We're talking about unbelievable amount of consultation, talking, figuring out optimal ways to train, restore, and so forth and so forth. Every aspect of caring for an athlete is thought through by a team of experts in different fields. We discussed in our last conversation fitness plans, fitness systems, multi-level fitness system, GTO, right? The same story created by a team of scientists employed at the national by a research institute, and they were charged with a task of scientific justification of the criteria and requirements for these tests and these levels. So they involved thousands of participants in different regions of the country who took the tests and demonstrated the results, and they tried. In other words, these tests have been created by a very detailed and very time and resource consuming a process of development. The same thing with the multi-level, multi-stage, sport-specific levels and system of qualification.
Peter, would this be under the Ministry of Sport? Would that be what you would
Yes.
call it? So that'd be the National Ministry of Sport.
Yes. In consultation with the national governing body, with the, say, wrestling federation, this team of scientists, sport scientists, would develop the requirements that are 10 level qualification system for progressing from first steps and first competitive experiences in wrestling and in 100 other sports through these 10 levels to the national and international level of performance.
Is it always for every sport? Was it 10 levels? Did they break it down into 10 levels across every sport?
Yes, and the reason why it was done uniformly across all sports was that it can be also used for distribution of resources and fair system of rewarding athletes, their coaches, their managers, their clubs, universities where the clubs might be located, communities, because then you can say you raised so many first level wrestlers, but you also raised or prepared so many level 1 boxers and swimmers and so forth and so forth. So we can objectively and transparently reward them according to this qualification, and every sport, instead of bickering about money and instead of trying to play political games
Wow.
to get resources from the public, from the Olympic Committee, from state, from federal government, from state government, from local government. Instead of doing this, there has been a system that is can be clearly comparable and transparent across all sports, and you can receive funding according to the levels of achievement of every participant that you are entrusted with, that you attracted and retained. It was also so it was very
Competitive.
useful in seeing the retention, how you retain and how you progress an athlete from three junior levels through 3 adult levels towards, and then through 3 master levels to get to the top.
So Peter, this also makes it highly competitive from different clubs, because if resources are based on productivity, then it would mean that coaches are working very hard in order to try to gain more resources for their training base or center, because obviously the government is looking at productivity, and they probably evaluate based on standards that are set whether they need to make coaching changes or not. Was that part of the process?
Yes, yes. Again, why it has not been fully replicated by other countries?
Yeah.
Well, no, but it's a fair question, because it is too time and resource consuming. It requires to develop this system requires too many hours of consultation, cooperation, negotiation, research, analysis. It is too hard. It is too bloody long of a too many sleepless nights and too much of hard work. so and it's the same thing with the doping. Well, you can accuse any country in any winning country in doping, but first you have to look at how hard are athletes prepared to train, and that is one of the main reasons. Very simple. There is no substitute for the hard work that the athletes, especially wrestlers in Eastern Europe and some Asian republics of the Soviet Union that have been very successful. This is number one reason, and probably the main reason that is still the factor of success.
Hard work, and then in order to have the hard work, you're saying the mastery of doping at the highest levels allows these athletes to train harder, and that is what is that what you're getting at, or no?
I'm saying that it is a part of the training, performance enhancement, as it has been since ancient Olympics, when ancient Greek wrestlers would eat animal testicles,
Yeah.
hoping that they consume extra hormonal substances in order to increase their strength and stamina, and many other ancient ways to enhance performance. My point is that this is a lot less than 5% of a factor for the success.
A lot less than 5% is doping, you're saying?
Yeah.
But 5% is a lot when you're talking about the highest level.
It's debatable. It's very difficult to establish.
You still have to have the right genetics. You still have to train and put in all the hours and the work necessary to develop the skill sets, the tactical and strategical advantages that you need, all of that. And so you're saying the doping is less than 5%, but at the highest levels, these athletes are looking for 3% or 2%, maybe the difference.
Of course, at the very top, when you're talking about winning silver or gold at the Olympic level, that 1% is going to make that difference between silver and gold. And that performance enhancement substance perhaps is gonna make you win as opposed to take the second place. Perhaps.
Yeah.
But again, one of the top
And we don't want to have this,
investors
we
was
don't want to have this be the topic is doping, because every country has issues with doping. It's not, it's an individual athlete and coaches that are, do this. But I think we had a conversation before. You guys learned about, that's an interesting thing. I remember you talking about you guys learned about the doping and what was safe and what was not safe, but it wasn't provided. It was discretionary, correct? Was it? Because you learned about it, but or was it advised?
I think understanding of how it works is requires a very good understanding of the culture, which is lacking. And currently there is a lot of hype and a lot of superficial discussion of the doping, and it's more a discussion about organization of testing and organization of distributing the doping, but the enhancement of performance has always been part of the medical service and medical care provided for the athletes. Again, it's been done only at the very, very, very top, and coaches at the developmental level through the long-term athlete development process, they have been advised to provide athletes with a lot of substances that were to improve health, at the same time improve performance. Vitamin cocktails, different foods, different drinks that have higher proportion of have higher a level of vitamin and other substances that are immune strengthening, vitamins, vitamin B, for example, and other and other vitamins that were given to athletes, and all this process has been organized and was done through the doctors. So if we compare Western system and Eastern European system, the main difference is that the responsibility in the West is on the shoulders of an athlete for everything, for the medical, for the success of the medical service, psychological service, conditioning service. It's up to the athlete to make the decisions. In many cases, to choose the coach, and that includes doping. Whereas in European system, and in particular in Eastern Europe, that is provided, and the responsibility is taken by the organization, by the club, by the sports school that is raising or training, preparing this participant, this athlete. Where in a club and where that's a local team, regional team, Republican or like state team, regional team, or national team, there is a doctor assigned to provide medical service, physicals, regular checkups, advise coach on what kind of food should be given to athletes, what kind of vitamins, what kind of additives, what kind of again, performance enhancement and health enhancement, pharmaceutical and all other types of care should be provided. So when we're talking about the current reason of disqualification of some teams for again because when the whole team is disqualified because it's state sanctioned process of doping. It is not just doping, it's a state administered program of holistic care for the athletes, and it's not so easy to break that system and to turn around and do it in the Western way where athletes are responsible for all this. The philosophy is that if you train an athlete, you are as a coach and as a team are responsible for the well-being of the athlete, and instead of closing eyes on you as an athlete taking some artificial performance enhancements that might not be allowed, the philosophy is that yes, we know we help you to do it in a safe way. We help you to withdraw negative, to withdraw it from the system if possible, and minimize the harmful effects of any pharmaceuticals that you're taking. But we are not closing our eyes and rejecting, and we're going into denial, as is done with many top athletes from Armstrong to Ben Johnson, who were responsible, who were found to take drugs, and they were responsible personally for this. Whereas and managers and coaches in many cases avoided responsibility. You might argue they knew that athletes have been taking drugs, and they just didn't help them enough to avoid where possible, minimize where possible, and then where they take it, still help them in all possible ways to again to minimize harmful effects of these drugs. So there is no.
Just to clarify this, and we've talked about this before. It's basically, to sum it up, it's known that at the very top that there is doping, and in this Eastern, the philosophy, I would say, of the Eastern Bloc countries, it was more, and even now, let's help try to minimize the harmful effects, help these, because if we don't, they will, and they don't have the science and understanding and knowledge and research to be able to do it the proper way, and more damage and harm will happen to these athletes. So we try to administer it because we've hired all of the top experts, and we try to show them the proper way at the top, because it's happening everywhere, and we're trying to look at the health and well-being for long-term, because again, long-term athletic development, what's going to be safe, so that they don't have as many maybe issues in the future that was harmful for their bodies with drugs and pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, Yeah, that's in
Does that make
essence.
sense? Does that make sense, Kyle? Where it's like we know this is happening all over the world.
Minimize the effects.
Let's just try to make sure it's done safely to protect our athletes,
Even though it's illegal,
even though it's illegal.
right? I mean, I want to make,
Yeah, they know they've always known it was illegal, but so do the athletes around the world that use too, and that's the point, correct?
Yes,
They all know it's illegal.
but they're
yes,
minimizing the effects.
and it's in line. It's in line with voices that are more and more, I'd say, important in the field now, where some sports scientists think that it is impossible to catch up with the development of drugs and by the testing agencies, and instead of, or at least in addition to testing for the drugs, the most important thing is to test the key health indications of the athlete, to test your health condition better and deeper, rather than trying to detect specific substances, prohibited substances in your blood, trying to establish whether all your health conditions are within the norm. It is somewhat already started when we test the blood, not for prohibited substances, but for red cell or white cell counts, right?
Right.
We look at composition of your blood, and if we know that your red cell count is over the limit, we now know you have taken something, and we don't need to know what it is exactly, but we disqualify you if your blood composition is too different from the norm. So that's the I guess that's the
right now my red blood cell count is low. So when I got tested last week, and my doctor, assumes that it more than likely is just because I was fighting the infection, and so your red blood cell count is low. But it's kind of interesting that you're saying this, because that also is an indicator of cancerous tumor. We said very slight chance, but I'm going to go have some testing done just to make sure to rule that out. But more than likely, it's just fighting COVID that the red blood cells count is down. But regardless, he said, because of this, we're still going to do the tests to make sure that nothing is wrong. It's very similar. What you're saying is they do the blood tests. They want it to be in the norm. They can determine if they took anything that they weren't supposed to, because they're regulating what they should. Correct?
Yes, and this approach is a lot more sensible from the point of view of athlete health and long-term success and long-term lifelong healthy participation, because when you are looking at the full spectrum of health indicators, you are preventing not only drug testing, but you're also preventing development of many illnesses that might be starting to occur within the body of a tested athlete. And you might be saying, hey, yeah, man, for some reason your red cell count is too low today, so you shouldn't be competing not for the reason of being too strong, not for the reason of having an advantage, but for the reason of having an alarming disadvantage. You might, yeah, and
So you can do customized periodization based on lab results.
you know, they should be, and I would argue sooner or later they will be part of this. We are seeing, I think right now we're seeing some of the very beginning of this fundamental shift in the testing of doping. We are starting to detect unfair competitive advantages in athletes by looking at their health conditions, at the blood composition. We're not searching for all possible prohibited substances in the blood. We're more looking at the health of the blood, at how healthy the blood is, rather than trying to detect very specific substances. We are never going to catch up with the scientists who are on the dark side of the doping, who are developing new performance enhancement substances. The only way to catch at the moment is to develop a very advanced system of health monitoring and health testing for athletes. We know that yeah, so it's a whole different different story. But in terms of long-term athlete development, it's one kind of one part that is to be taken into account, and it's part, and it's and it should be part of long-term athlete development.
You know that this
again and again. The more important, the more fundamental, as one of the top Eastern European wrestlers was questioned on doping and on the reasons he wins. He said, well, yeah, doping plays some role, but it's such a small part of my success. My success comes from the fact that I train. He said I train every day harder than anybody trained in a single day of their life. So I mean, it's pretty arrogant. Okay, it's pretty I'd say maybe not it's a bit over the top, but I think it's indicative of the strive, indicative of the it's indicative of the success factors that are sometimes so difficult to understand.
No, and that's a good point, though, that they're pointing to the success being attributed to the hard work and the training that they put in. You can do all the doping you want and not work hard and not train, and it's not going to matter, you know. So, and I think that we'll let Kyle add a couple questions here, I think, on this topic, but this took a turn I didn't think it was going to go. I really didn't. That wasn't the. I guess I don't think doping was that in the questions.
No, but
I mean, but it's great. But Kyle, what was the question you were going to ask related to this?
well, are you talking about Karelin? Is that who the wrestler was you were talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Go ahead.
And I mean, I met him in the sauna a couple of years ago. In Moscow, there is a sauna complex called Sanduny, and it's one of the very typical Eastern European sauna places. And he he administered the process of using the sauna on that day. And it's a very elaborate process of using steam room. It's a mixture of Finnish sauna again and steam room. Eastern European or Russian hot room is a combination. Is a sauna. It's not steam room as it's used in the East, and it's not completely dry, very dry Finnish sauna that is more seen in the West. It's somewhere in the middle. The door is open. The steam is the steam is not. The heat is it's not too hot. It's not as hot as the Finnish sauna. So for health reasons, it's not as dangerous. We know that some claim that Finnish sauna causes cancer because the temperature is so high. So throat cancer. There are different herbs and different healthy kind of substances that are used in
Balneotherapy.
In the water. You put it in the water, and it's in the steam. Oils, various herbs are used. How you jump into the cold water after that is also all. The whole process is a creative but also scientific process of a restoration that Russian wrestlers have been developing for decades and decades and decades. So it's very hard work, but it's also very hard rest.
So it's science-based.
Yeah, it's rest that requires a lot of thinking through, analyzing, a lot of research, a lot of best practice research from all over the world, and implementation of practices that are optimal for speeding up your rest. Your restoration is maximized in terms of speed and depth of your rejuvenation of your whole body. Your not only your muscles and your joints, but also your mind. Okay, and this process is also a critical success factors in for Russian wrestlers who you're asking why. These are some of the key reasons why.
So you, based on what you were saying earlier, you're saying Karelin doped then?
No.
I thought that. Oh, I thought that. No,
Of course not. All I was saying that he was questioned on that, and that was his answer.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Now, are you about the same age as Karelin? Is your age?
I was afraid you're gonna drill me whether I doped and what I do when I was competing.
Oh, I don't care if you did or not.
So the answer is gonna be always pretty much the same. We don't want to go into too much of a detail about it, but there are many again substances that are healthy and legal. There are performance enhancement substances that I learned a lot from wrestlers about performance enhancement substances that are natural and healthy. So that's also an important, very important, I think, direction that has always been taken by the doctors, and you know, combination of food-based performance enhancement has always been a critical kind of a focus.
Do Russian Soviets, do they like beating the Americans?
Of course, but I'd have to say that we after World War II we lost. Oh, sorry, after Cold War. Sorry, after World War II we had a very very good system of competition in terms of it was healthy in a way, and it was both on the politics of sport, the politics of nuclear weapons, all that I think created a very good, if you wish, a gentleman competition. Okay, we didn't have any intentions to stab each other in the back as do terrorist groups. Unfortunately,
yeah, I see what you're saying.
I think a lot of people try to separate sport and politics, which is silly. I think our patriotic feelings, our patriotism in America and in the Soviet Union, and in Russia now it's reviving, is a very good, healthy, very positive competition component. I think it's like barracking for your home team. It's like New York Yankees against Boston, and it's a pity that we have lost this Cold War competition. I think it might be restoring now a little bit, reviving. But the answer to your question is yes. As much as Americans love to dominate at international stage, Russians do exactly the same. I think motivating factor, and it's great. I think, I don't see it as a negative factor. I see it as a eustress that we're creating rather than distress. Positive stress that is stimulating, stress that is progressive, stress that creates new technologies, new ways of healthier and better ways to train, to eat, to rest, to organize your life, to organize your lifestyle. If we look at what was created for national health during the Cold War, starting from President Kennedy's fitness test program, which was similar to GTO that we're talking about. If it continued, and if we do continue with the presidential fitness program, and make it more detailed, more instructive, better rewards, better everything, better, take the best from GTO, take the best from European just when we develop and advance it, it can serve wrestlers and all other athletes and all school children. Great service to be healthier and more productive. So yes, all this can be directed. If it's not a fanatical win at all costs kind of approach, and while saying we do like to win, Americans and Russians, we do like to win. We both, I think both nations have very good limiting I'd say limiting traditions to the winning, and understanding that how important it is to not to focus on winning, so that you compromise health of long-term and lifelong participation of athletes.
Peter, I'm just thinking a little bit here. I don't know how much or how you want this put into this article, because we went over a lot of things. That my suggestion would be, because I don't want you to get in any trouble as far as, and not that you would or whatnot, with different colleagues you have over in Russia when we get into the doping part of it. So what I would suggest, you're not going to touch doping at all?
No.
Okay, he's not going to discuss doping in the article at all, unless it's something that you maybe you have thoughts on that.
No, it's fine. You ask me, I answer frankly without any hesitation. That's fine.
Platform. It's just not.
It's not? Okay.
It's not our lane. We're not investigative journalists here. We're trying to make people better. So there's a lot here, a lot from the previous one. So we can just keep moving forward the next time.
Yeah. Do you think there's enough in, you got what you want for this
Yeah.
next article? Okay.
Plenty.
Now, we only did one question. We're going to have to do.
Yeah, we'll keep going.
Let's keep going on this, because we didn't discuss anything that you and I discussed here on the phone today. We'll have to save that for the next time. But yeah, we're going on 1 hour, and I think he probably has enough for the article. But that article,
I think everything that we discussed fits very well within long-term athlete development.
absolutely.
And touching a little bit on artificial performance enhancement is fine. There is nothing that, I mean, it's important. It's important to highlight some of the best practices, some of the. I mean, we want to learn from the best programs, and the winning programs have positive and negative practices. The only thing that we want to take are positive practices that are beneficial for the health of athletes. So
I have one question that if you could, even for the let's say natural performance enhancing substances that you learned from wrestlers that are healthy, because you said you learned from wrestlers a lot of natural performance enhancing substances that are not illegal and that are healthy. Maybe there's 3 things that we could put in a list, and we can investigate it a little bit and see if that's something that Kyle wants to put out there. But let's say
number one is what I mentioned, is a very advanced way of process of using sauna. In our book, we discuss that in detail, different ways of optimizing your performance and health by using hot rooms.
Okay.
And I would also say that using nature in general by Russian wrestlers
Is that
is,
gonna be number 2, using nature?
yeah, using nature, like running on uneven surfaces, barefoot running, using you know using nature to maximize your conditioning in different temperatures, constantly trying to, as a wrestler in the gym, you are competing and training a lot indoors. So how Russian wrestlers brought their training outdoors as much as possible to build their immune system, to strengthen their bodies holistically is perhaps number 2 most important thing. And 3 is, well, eating. We discussed eating well to maintain strength but minimize your weight. And this is as part of this, very specific foods that make you stronger without making you heavier. And as also as part of this, foods that prevent your illnesses, so that because you are training as a wrestler so hard and you are eating sometimes a bit less, you're constantly risking to eat a bit less that you need to maintain immune system, right?
Like soups, obviously, with the high density of micro and macronutrients is a great concept that we discussed earlier, but utilizing a sauna with the contrast therapy, then outdoor training, which I've got some great old video footage of Polish athletes. They were weightlifters that in the wintertime, they had nature runs. They purposely jumping on in the woods and through the snow, and they're weightlifters, but they were having them run over trees, climb unbalanced surfaces like rocks along a frozen creek on ice, and then having to go on a special trail.
Yeah, playing and wrestlers playing soccer and other games in the snow, in the deep snow. Things like this, yes, might be, yeah, using outdoors to for many conditioning purposes that are and connecting this with immunostrengthening and some foods. Soup. We talked about soups, but also being very and using natural methods of when you are starting to get sick, how to stop that, how to quickly recover from any disorders. You start to feel that you're falling into, that you're catching some infection, eating with your soup, eating whole onion and then another one, eating a lot of garlic and onion for during one or 2 days hopefully to kill the infection, right? You pull a muscle, and which happens too often with wrestlers. Instead of applying artificial or pharmaceutical methods, put your feet in the freezing cold and put very hot shower on the spot that is pulled to help, to get energy and blood flow in that area. So basically putting all of you in the cold, but putting the hurt area in the heat, so that all your energy and blood flow goes into that area.
Oh, that's crazy. So you're saying,
and flashing, and it's
you're
flashing
saying
out,
cold-
and it's flashing out, and it's relaxing, and it kind of relaxing the spasm of the muscle by these extreme contrast temperatures, but in a very natural way, using very simple teapot that you boil boil water in the teapot.
well, so you're saying
And boil
the
water in the
vasoconstriction,
teapot.
yeah,
Put yourself in a freezing cold, especially your feet and your legs, in a bucket of ice. And then, let's say if it's a shoulder that you pull, pouring the boiled water as much as you can tolerate the heat, as much as the skin can tolerate without burning, pouring the hot water on that damaged muscle area, okay, is that extreme contrast temperature method that is very natural. These are examples of learning from Russian wrestlers to learning the method that are critically important for healthy, lifelong athlete development.
so which is interesting, because you're saying because the cold will have a vasoconstriction, so it'll push more blood outside of the area that's cold, while the vasodilation in the area that's injured, so it pushes the blood into that area.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I've never even heard of that. Yeah. On heat on injured area.
And that is to treat some local
Right.
and some
Like
local.
a knee or a elbow, where you can pack ice around and then heat on the joint. You could do that with maybe a very hot heating pad, and then cold around the arms too. Yeah, or naturally with ice and hot water.
Yeah, I mean, you can experiment with contrasting first. When you first pull it, perhaps ice is needed
best.
in any case. But you can do what I said after. You can try and do this after icing it. And this contrast ice and really hot boiling water on an injured area is in line with this elaborate methods of using hot rooms as a recovery, using them frequently, and using them for many purposes, not only resting, not only recovering quickly, but also maintaining healthy weight, knowing when to stop, and finding your personal regime, determining and identifying best methods for you, and see, most importantly, when to stop. You go into the sauna, you break into sweat, and you start sweating, right? Your sweat is coming out. What you're doing is you are starting to lose weight. You're starting to lose also salt and minerals, and you're starting to lose strength at some stage if you sweat too much.
So
this is what you're playing with. You're playing with different times you need to stay in sauna after you break into sweat, and you are determining what is your individual time that you need to maintain certain weight as a wrestler, right? Then you see, do you need to go into sauna 3 times a week and do short periods of breaking into sweat for several minutes, or is it better for you to do it once a week and do a little bit of a more of a relaxation, end of the week relaxation, that where you lose more weight, you lose more salt. Okay, so this process of searching for your optimal way to use hot rooms is what I learned from wrestlers who are scientists and artists of doing it at the top level. Yes, Karelin perhaps one of the top scientists and artists in that area. And what you eat, how you eat salt, how you drink mineral water before going into sauna, so that you preemptively loading salt and some minerals into your system, into your body, before you're going to the sauna, where you're going to lose that salt and those minerals. Okay.
I have a quick question, Peter. So what is the recommendation? Is it the first 24 hours using ice only on an injured area, and then maybe 24 hours later you can go heat and the contrast? Or
Yes.
what is that the recommendation?
That's a good that's a good kind of, yeah, it's a good timing. Maybe even less of a, depending on I think depending on the inflammation level, the icing could be less, you see.
Yeah, if there's not any inflammation, you can move into the contrast quicker.
You can move to heating a bit earlier if you don't need to reduce.
There's no purpose if there's no, the swelling isn't a factor. I love it. I think I mean, we got a lot of great, I mean, I took a lot of notes. I thought this was excellent. I didn't contribute much this one, but that's okay. I learned a lot.
We did not. No, let's answer one last question that Kyle emailed, and it's about the psychology, because
well, I think we need a whole nother session for that, Peter, because that's going to take a good hour. I think if we get into the psychology, I think we need to hit that next week, because that is, so the next question is long-term athletic development, the psychology, like for a wrestler, the mental side. And that's a big question. And I think we'll spend a lot of time on that. Because I mean, right now, I think he's got more than enough for this first article, or this article, but we're going to have to go long-term athletic development 3. And I think that's fine, because I think this is great information. I don't want to rush it. I don't think we need to rush. I think we devote that is what we devote the next session to, is the psychology of the mental toughening, the systemized approach. Is there a systemized approach? How is that done? What do we do in the United States? What do we know? And this is going to be, that's going to be a great topic. So, I mean, I think we've got some awesome information. If he can't write an article on it, I can.
Okay.
So
okay, it was great. I think we touched on in past 2 discussions, we touched on the all most important aspects of lifelong, and we talked about lifelong. I think that's the term is long-term athlete development is becoming more and more lifelong, and I think, again, I mentioned it, but I want to stress it again. The sport specific and wrestling specific ranks requirements for wrestlers to grow from junior to adult to master levels now have been instructed by sports scientists who and who worked in partnership in coordination together with wrestling experts to create requirements for post-master level, so that you can compete in senior level games, and you can compete in age specific categories that are 40 plus, 50 plus, 60 plus, and 70 plus. And we say that we have the GTO testing system, fitness testing system. It instructs you to prepare yourself physically for strength, endurance, and flexibility that is needed to compete. But now we have for senior ages we also have a wrestling specific and other and sports specific guidelines, so that you can be competing at first rank, master rank, and other top level ranks at any level, at any age, and you might be able to start a bit later than usual and compete into your 70 plus. And the fact that we have guidelines for fitness and for wrestling specific competitions is the most, I think, the most important development that is taking place now, where we're going into Youth Olympics. Youth Olympics are already there, established, right, happening. What we're creating now is international competitions for those who are 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 plus, and Olympics for those older senior participants is what is needed. And everything that we discussed today in our last conversation, how to maintain that performance and health towards your age of 90 and 100 is the current most interesting, most I think most advanced.
So the objective is lifelong, and you're trying to look at getting people to be active and be physical and do, low level sport at 100 years old.
Yeah. So we now have a very specific instructions for those who want to maintain their health at the age 70 plus. We're creating also wrestling specific competition requirements for them.
For 70 plus, wrestling specific training and health. So
that wrestlers who are now ending your career may be saying, no, it's still the beginning. I still have 20 more years to compete.
70-year-olds plus.
Yeah.
100 is the goal or objective.
And we're pretty clear now on the fitness requirements. What I would love to see is how psychological testing that is done on very well on young wrestlers to more or less to screen them whether they fit and whether they are strong enough. How this psychological testing can be developed and advanced in order for this to become a tool for lifelong performance and health development.
Well, I think Kyle wants to know the fitness and training requirements for 70 plus, because when he gets there, he might start competing at 70. Well, Peter, I think we've got a lot to digest and think about here. I love it. This is great, and we appreciate the time. That's been awesome. So we'll talk next week.